Oh, there's Mr. Poitras. We'll just wait a few then. That's a total conflict between winter and summer.
I was just gonna comment on that. Good job.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. It's a special meeting that we had to call for November 25th. We have one agenda item, a motion to approve the agenda, please. Councilor Orr makes the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Under new business, we have a grant application and we'll ask our CAO to introduce the grant to us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So just wanted to give a little background on this Alberta Community Partnership Grant application. I guess one of the reasons to why we're having a special meeting is because the deadline for this application is the end of this week, the 28th. So this grant application is, we're partnering with the County of Cardston. All of the Alberta Community Partnership grants, you join with another municipality to better work together and receive the benefits of both parties. We have successfully received the ACP grant for our stormwater master plan, our water and wastewater master plan, and our transportation master plan. Those 3 times we did partner with the MD of Willow Creek. This time we did approach the MD of Willow Creek. They are currently partnering with Stavely on another grant, a different kind of avenue, and so they said they didn't want to muddy the water, and so we connected with the County of Cardston, and they were interested in this grant as well, so we are partnering with them. The purpose of this grant is to help us identify some ways to cut red tape, reduce the time and touch points needed in the permitting process, and we're working with a company called Government Frameworks. We currently work with them. We only started working with them just before that last year, and we're automating some online forms. They're really big into automation. They're starting to implement AI to try to reduce the touch points, to improve the information that we get on applications so that the process can be more streamlined and we can use our man hours more efficiently. And so this study that they're going to perform, if we were successful with this grant, is to look into that cutting red tape and looking into some of their processes that they already use and perform, or they're just starting to kind of perform, and see if we can implement some of those in the town as well. So tonight, or this afternoon, I guess it is, the recommendation is that Council authorize the Town of Fort Macleod to partner with the County of Cardston on the Alberta Community Partnership Grant application with the Town of Fort Macleod as the lead managing partner, and that means we are the ones who do the actual submission of the application through the portal. Just want to double check my notes on a few things. So this one would be under the intermunicipal collaboration application. I guess the project itself would be a 2026 project. The awarding of the grant would happen in March 2026. If we're successful, we could proceed. If we're not successful, we would not proceed. Although we are still interested in always looking for ways to improve our permitting process. The other thing to note, obviously, the risk is quite low to us. Some of the outputs I identified with Government Frameworks as we work through this project are the public report, which is called How Much Growth Are We Leaving on the Table? With municipality-specific and regional economic loss estimates. So trying to quantify how much, if it takes an extra week, if it takes an extra, the time that it takes, how much that affects our municipality. They give us some quantified forecasts on jobs and tax revenue. A professionally designed adoptable toolkit with some templates and checklists and some model bylaws and shared digital forms. And then a presentation deck and 1-page fact sheet for council and economic development boards. So that's a little bit in a nutshell. We're excited about the possibility to continue to streamline our processes. And if you have any questions, I would gladly try to answer those.
Thank you very much. I'll request a motion from council then, as per the recommendation. Anyone prepared to make the motion, Councillor Patience?
Yeah,
Makes
just
the
if I
motion.
might, I would like to see like the name of the study in the motion, if we could, Anthony. Just so if I'm looking back on a motion register, I know what that grant was for, not just an ACP grant. Does that make sense? So in
Absolutely.
this case, cutting red tape, boosting growth would
Yeah.
be sufficient, but
100%.
includes that in the motion. And you want a motion before we do discussion, Mayor
Yeah.
Frater? I'll
Yeah.
make that motion then.
Thank you.
All right, motion's on the floor. Any further discussion, questions regarding this matter? Councillor Monteith?
So I presume that the county gets the same report that we get? And is there any extra cost? And will that be shared?
So give me loud, all of the costs of the study and the deliverables are going to all be covered in the grant. Essentially, the grant maxes out at $200,000 with essentially $100,000 value going to each of us. Sorry, what was the first part of your question?
Whether we get the same report?
Yeah, so the report there will be similar factors in it, but in the action plan for government frameworks, they will be meeting with individual development officers to see how each of us are operating. And so there will be some specific to us, but I mean, the bones of it are probably going to be very similar.
Councillor Patience?
So just curiosity, so the grant is up to 100,000 per municipality. Is that what they've quoted us on doing this study? Is exactly $200,000?
Yes, well, it was just over, but the grant, they're reducing it. So I know this is information that if I can pull it up here.
Either way, there's no extra revenue that would come to the town. We don't, if it's not the full extent of the grant, we don't get any revenue from it.
Yeah, there wouldn't be, the expenditures on these grants, they have to be approved, just like the ones we do with MPE. They'll work away at the grant until the funds are all spent on eligible expenditures. So the breakdown of the fees on this, there's consultant fees for regulatory analysis, economic modeling and toolkit, report writing and projects. That is $182,000. There's an economic impact consulting quoted at $22,000, stakeholder engagement workshop, $6,500, professional design and printing, $2,800, and project microsite and public engagement at $1,500. So it does come to just before that, but just over the $200,000, but the grant is only for the $200,000. And in my discussions with them, they were confident that they could have it come in at just the grant amount.
So that was my related question right from the outset, was whether or not we are exposed to any additional costs above the grant.
Yeah, I guess that's the same answer, right? Like we don't, the intention is to use the grant as it is. We do work with them on a few other items. And so whether or not this opens avenues to further additional work in applying different technologies and stuff like that, that might be adjacent to the knowledge that we gain and the practice that we understand. But no, this is supposed to be all entailed within the 200,000.
Councillor Patience, did that answer your question? You like how consultants do that? I'm
Yeah,
assuming
it's
that's what you're worried about.
$200,000 available. Geez, the bill's $200,000. It's sort of a commonality amongst
Yeah.
municipal consultants. That's why I asked the question.
So encourage some competitiveness in the application process, maybe. The question I did have is, do they review contractors, partners that work with the town of Fort Macleod, or strictly internal processes? I'm thinking whether it's our engineering firm or accounting auditors. Like, do they go to that scope where they're actually helping us? 'Cause to me, back to our conversation about phase 3 of McLeod Landing, like, are they looking for efficiencies in development on that scale where we can see developments get done quicker?
Yeah, so some of the action items or the activities that they would be performing, So collecting our data, so like 5 years of development permits, subdivision and land use amendment data, and more to your point, 10 plus targeted interviews with developers, home builders, and major regional employers. So that's the part where, I'm sure we'll be working collaboratively with them so that they know who to talk to. But that's where we'd see a lot of the value on the outside looking in, and our internal stuff will all be covered thoroughly.
And do you think they'll have some results where they have recommended actions for the province? Because that's kind of who mandated the red tape reduction. So in a sense, if we're not carrying that information back to the province, maybe, because a lot of how we operate is governed by the province anyways. So.
Yeah, it hasn't been discussed about if they're taking anything back, but they are hoping to do this for, multiple municipalities who they work with. So
I'm hoping if it's an ACP grant that they collect and gather that information and use it. That would be my hope. But any other comments, questions? Comes from.
So, Anthony, am I to understand then that this would reduce the workload for our development officer to some degree in terms of streamlining applications and sort of short-circuiting applications that are missing information? Is that correct?
that would be the hopeful intended outcome. And one thing that would go along with this grant, and I mean, the grant is a great opportunity to do the research and, create the study. But Government Frameworks is already working at the streamlining of the permitting process. And so this will allow us to kind of leverage into that a little bit. So what they're trying to do on the permitting process, and they're starting to with a number of municipalities already, is reduce the number of touch points. And so when someone makes an application, they fill out their application, they submit it. If it's missing sections, we already have the little red asterisk. That's pretty natural if we've missed a section. But let's say if someone put the wrong information in, they're hoping that their AI, like I said, I haven't seen it in action, but they've gone through the theory of how this works, and they say they're working with a few municipalities on it already. And so they'd be able to take our process and see how they could implement that as well. And so then it would reduce the number of touch points, potentially reduce the number of phone calls that Kelly has to, a simple answer where the system could tell you what the simple answer could be, which, yes, in turn would reduce the amount of work that our development officer would need on each application. And then conveniently, because we are a growing community, her workload, if you ever walk past Kelly's office, the stacks of yellow folders in her room, as we increase in the number of permits, she can therefore manage more at a time if the system's taking more of that work from her.
If I might, Mayor Fader, follow up. So is it just suggesting that there are AI possibilities that could reduce that workload? Do those AI options actually come as part of the study, or is that like a separate buy after the study's complete?
This one particularly, they did say that we can implement these changes with the study, but eventually that would become like a subscription base. So they did say that with the study, because the grant is for the study, right? And so the grant, right, the way the province has the grant dedicated, it's for the study, it's for all that work that goes into it. But yes, it's their intention to, they want us to get this rolling, and they said that with the grant, and we could have a rollout of the implementation of this software, kind of on a trial basis to implement what they've learned in the study, and then eventually that would become like, it's part of our annual cost as well. So just because of the type of software that it is, it would have an annual ongoing cost. So the initial implementation of it would potentially be in this. But then again, they do also have to be a little careful that the ACP grant is for the study. It's not for a software for us to receive, but they're trying to make it work that we can get additional value because of the results of the study.
It's an interesting world, the consulting world, but I think there's good value too. just because they're seeing things that we don't see and could help us get to where we would like to be sooner. So if there is no other comments, discussion, questions, debates, motion is on the floor to approve as recommended. I'll call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And that's it for today. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.